me start with a small quiz. How many of you have the Careem app on their devices? Okay, so it's a small number. When we ask the question in Saudi or Dubai or even Pakistan these days, there are more hands raised. So inshallah, we'll make the same happen in Turkey. And when we come here next year, there'll be a lot more hands raised. But first, thank you very much for inviting Careem and me to this event. It is a real privilege to be here. And the story of Careem is one of focus, it's one of intense perseverance, and really one of blessing and support from the ecosystem. So I'll walk you through the story as it has unfolded, and we'll cover 5 key lessons that we have learned in the journey so far. So hopefully it's helpful to the entrepreneurs in the room. And finally, I'll tell you a little bit about what our view is of the future, especially our view of Careem in Turkey. So just before we begin, a quick recap of where Careem is 4 years into the journey. We are present in 11 countries, all the way from Morocco on the west to Pakistan to the east. So the entire block from Morocco to Pakistan, including Turkey, is where the service currently operates. In these 11 countries, we are now in 50 cities. Now, in some countries, we are still in the larger cities, but in places like Saudi, in places like Egypt and Pakistan, we're starting to make our way into the Tier 2 and the Tier 3 cities as well, which is exciting because transport infrastructure in those cities is typically very lacking. So we delight in the fact that we're making an impact in the lives of people in the smaller markets as well. We have impacted the lives of about 8 million people and about 180,000 drivers or captains, as we call them. Alhamdulillah, we have grown consistently at about 25–30% month on month, which generally translates into every 3 to 4 months, the business doubles. So wherever we are today, inshallah, in the next 4 months, we will be double our size. That's been the historic trend. And all of this growth has happened based on the hard work and the commitment of about 1,000 colleagues. We don't call our people employees. They're colleagues, they're partners in the crime. And we have received some decent funding, mostly from regional investors. So sometimes I feel that as we compete with the global behemoths, we are carrying the pride of the region on our shoulders to win, not just for us, but for the region. But that's where Careem is today. So I'll tell you a little bit about how we started, and then we'll cover the key learnings, and then we go into the future. So the start, before there was Careem, there was this thing that we called Project Bamboo. This was sort of the code name for the project that initially me and my co-founder, Magnus Olsson, we said, let's figure out what we should do with our lives. And we asked ourselves 2 questions. Should we quit our jobs? And we were consultants in our prior lives. Should we quit our jobs and take the plunge into entrepreneurship, which I'm sure many of you did, and many of you are probably thinking of doing. And the second question we asked ourselves is, if we do take the plunge, what should we really do? So the answer to the first question, which a lot of professionals struggle with, and we struggled with that as well at the beginning, was not clear at the moment, at the beginning. We were doing well in our jobs, we were making decent money, there was a lot of respect. So it wasn't clear whether we should really abandon all of that amazing life and respect for an uncertain future. But after some more thinking, we realized that the decision is actually quite simple. For many professionals like us, the risk of entrepreneurship is actually very, very low. What's the worst thing that will happen if you don't succeed? You'll get a job again. And given the amount of learning that you will do when you're building something for yourself, you would have learned a lot and become a lot more valuable to whoever ends up hiring you in the future. So actually, the risk is very low. And second, what should we do if we really do something? Since we were consultants, transportation was a part of our daily lives. We realized that there was a big pain in providing reliable transport to consultants. And that's how we basically got into Careem. Initially, it was a corporate booking service, and over time, it evolved into a consumer business. So before Careem, we were living the high life. We were traveling in nice cars, and we were eating fancy meals. And the day we started Careem, which was the first of Ramadan 2012, almost 4.5 years ago. I remember the first day of Careem, I went to the bus station in Dubai, and using buses is not as common in Dubai as it might be in Turkey. So I went to the bus station in Dubai, spent $5 taking a ride from Dubai to Abu Dhabi, and since that was Ramadan, for iftar we had a $2 chicken biryani, which is a bit of a lesson, right? As an entrepreneur, you have limited funds. Those funds need to last you the longest. You cannot spend your money living the high life. You really have to go down to the basics. And that's what we did for the first few months. I was living in Dubai, Magnus was in Abu Dhabi. One day I would go to Abu Dhabi in the bus. The second day Magnus would come to Dubai in a bus. And we would try to eat the cheapest meals that we could eat and make the money that we had last the longest. So that's how we started. Now, at some point, we had to break the news to our parents and our coworkers what we were doing. And when I told my parents, who live in Pakistan, that I'm doing this, they were devastated. They just could not believe that their son, who had gone to some good schools in the US and worked at some decent places, would end up becoming a taxi driver. And this is how taxis look like in Pakistan, or at least some of them. So they literally saw me behind the wheel, moving people around from point A to point B. So they were against it in the beginning and for a long time after we started as well. And when we told our coworkers that this is what we want to do and we want to quit, they were also completely surprised, and they were calling us all sorts of things, that you guys have completely gone mad, it doesn't make any sense. And it wasn't the initial opposition. We got calls 3 months into the venture, 6 months into the venture, asking us if our madness was over and if we were ready to come back. So I'm sure many entrepreneurs have been through similar phases as well. If you don't see some sort of an opposition, you're probably not doing something right. If it's so acceptable, if the opportunity is so in front of everyone, there's probably something wrong. But we had our share of opposition as well. But we could not be more excited, because what we had discovered, what we had found, we thought was really, really big as an opportunity. Transport, especially in our region, is very undersupplied. We don't have enough transportation for the population that we have in the region. We don't have metros, we don't have buses, we don't have enough roads. So it's a massive opportunity. It's a daily need, just like food is a daily need. Phones might be a daily need now. So it's something that everyone needs, and it's undersupplied. It's also very meaningful. And when I say meaningful, when we had started, we had told ourselves that whatever we do as a startup, as a venture, there needs to be something meaningful in it. And it was initially a bit difficult, what is the meaningful part about a transportation service? But when we realized that by this venture and through this venture, we could impact the lives of hundreds of thousands of captains and millions of captains or drivers and create so many jobs, it really made it all come together for us. We were like, dude, this is something that we can really make it our mission in life and try to help the people that are going to be providing the service as opposed to using the service. And lastly, we didn't know competition would come so soon and make things a bit difficult for us. But even without the competition, it was a challenging venture. Because when you're doing a business like Careem, you have to build a consumer brand, you have to do business development, you have to do technology, operations. It's got almost every function in a box. So it's business school education in a box in some ways. It's got everything that you could potentially do in our business. So we thought as consultants that was quite challenging, that we could touch on a lot of different places. So there was a lot of opposition at the beginning. We started with very humble roots. And alhamdulillah, we stumbled on something that we thought was an amazing opportunity that had a very meaningful impact to it. Now, there are 5 things that we learned in this journey. And this is all, of course, hindsight. We just did what we thought had to be done. But in hindsight, there are 5 things that we learned that might be relevant to this audience. So the first learning is solve local problems. Now, as an entrepreneur, you should love problems, because every problem is an opportunity, and the bigger the problem, the bigger the opportunity. So you should love problems. And the same was the case with us. Every time we had a problem, we saw this as an opportunity and we tried overcoming that problem. So at the beginning, we were consultants who were not able to get reliable transport when we moved around the region. So we actually built a basic web-based form that allowed anyone to go in, make a booking from point A to point B at a time in the future and get a car. And that's what we did because that's the problem that we knew. When we realized that a lot of our captains or drivers were getting lost looking for addresses, because in the Middle East, by the way, there are no street addresses for the most part. People explain their locations as, I live next to this store in front of this mosque after the first right? That's how people describe addresses. So we realized that people were getting lost getting to those pickup locations. We invested in our own maps for the region. Afterwards, we realized that a lot of people are not able to communicate with the customers in the most effective way. We built a call center, not just for the customers, but also for the captains. So every step of the way, every time there was a failure, every time there was a challenge, it was an opportunity for us to learn about the problem, find a solution to the problem, and make our service better as a result. And to be honest, that's what really saved us when competition entered the Middle East. So when competition, who I like not to name, came to the Middle East in 2013, which was just a year after we started, it was all these solutions, hacks and cracks that we had run into and solved that saved us. Because while they had the amazing app and they had a lot of money, we had a system that worked for this region. We had a system that worked and made a reliable transport possible for the people that we were serving. So it's quite easy for entrepreneurs to look at what's happening in the rest of the world and become obsessed by it. I'm going to become this for this region. And our learning is that let's just make sure that you don't get obsessed by what's happening in the rest of the world. Feel free to get inspired by what's happening in the rest of the world, but the focus and the obsession needs to be with local problems and local customers. So that's really been the first learning for us. Solve local problems. The second, we got quite lucky in the sense that someone told us, if you're doing a startup, read this book called Lean Startup. I'm sure many of you have read this book. And Lean Startups, they introduce a concept called minimal viable product, which is basically develop something quickly, don't spend months or years developing it, go out to the market with something very quickly, and let the market tell you what you should be doing, and then you keep on iterating. And that was a new concept to us, but we read it, we learned it, and then we said, let's try it. So we started on the 22nd of July 2012, and we said we should do our first trip. The first trip of Careem should happen on 5th of September, I remember. So we gave ourselves about 6 weeks to do the first trip. And for people that develop technology, you realize that it's actually very difficult to build an end-to-end system, even a basic one, in 6 weeks. So by the time September 5th rolled around, we actually didn't have much. A lot of the features that we thought were basic to the service were missing. But we said, we believe in it, we will launch it, we will do things manually, we will maybe not get some customers, but we have to launch what we have and start learning from the market. It's been almost 4 years since that date. We still haven't developed those 2 or 3 features that we thought were part of the basic set in the beginning. Because what happened? When we launched the service, the market adopted it, and they started asking for different things. They said, we would love to have this, we would love to have this. And then we kept on developing the things that the market was asking for, not what we thought the market was needing. So the thing that has worked for us from the beginning, and this is how we like to run the business now, is really just let the market tell you what it needs, start moving fast, keep iterating. And more recently, this shows itself in the way that we manage growth. So for many startups, and all startups rather, growth does not happen automatically. Growth needs a lot of curation and active monitoring. So we at Careem monitor growth every 15 minutes. So Murad, who's the GM of Turkey, is sitting in the audience. If he opens his smartphone, he can tell you right now what Careem Turkey has grown vis-a-vis last week in the last 15 minutes. And that's the granularity at which we measure our growth. And if you see that the growth is not happening at the level that it needs to happen, because look, if you want to grow 30% month on month, you need 7% week on week growth. And if you're not hitting 7% week on week, then you need to do something. So we need to analyze, why is it not happening? Is it a demand issue? Is it a supply issue? If it's a supply issue, where is the supply issue? Why is it an issue? Let's solve it and do it very, very quickly so that you never see a slowdown in growth. So the lesson for us is be very, very quick, be iterative in the way that you approach the business, and let really the market guide you on what it needs. So that's really worked well for us, which is the second lesson for us after solving local problems. The third, hire awesome people, which is obvious. But I think what we realize is you really should not give up on hiring awesome people. It's challenging for startups in the region to hire awesome people, because a lot of awesome people, they want to work at branded multinationals and larger companies in the region. But there is no place that a top talent or a smart person can have more impact than at a startup. We call it the power law. A top performer is 20 times more productive and more valuable than an average performer, and not 20%. And so the premium for talent in a startup is much, much higher than for a big company that has processes and systems that will get something out of everyone. So talent is important. And we did 3 things to get the right talent on board and overcome this challenge. Number 1, we never looked for employees. There was never a job at Careem. We were always looking for partners in crime. And we gave them equity in the business to make sure that they viewed their role as partners, they viewed their role as owners of the business. And to date, I think everyone at Careem, if I'm not mistaken, everyone at Careem, including the person that picks up your phone when you call the Careem call center, has equity in Careem. And that drives a completely different type of behavior if you give them equity and make them realize what this means. So that's one thing that we did that worked quite successfully for us. Second, we even acqui-hired companies for talent. So we acquired our 3rd co-founder when we acquired Enwani in Saudi. We also acquired a business in Morocco for talent. We acquired a business in Pakistan for talent. So every time we saw a group of talented people, we just rushed out to get them on board one way or the other. And the last one was we didn't give up. When smart, talented people that we really thought would do well at Careem did not want to join Careem for one reason or the other, we stayed on them. It took us 1 year to convince Dr. Abdullah in Saudi to join us, because we just didn't give up. Because we knew that if he would come on board, and if people like him come on board, this business would look different. This business would get wings and start flying. So hire awesome people, whatever it takes, and use equity as currency to get these people on board. Find local allies. We've been lucky in the people that has come on board as advisors and investors, and they've really helped us with 3 things primarily. 1, they've helped us open doors that we would, on our own, find it difficult to open. They've helped us with local insights, and they've also helped us promote the service in their own circle and domains. But I think a lot of us, what we don't do so well, and we're not perfect in this either, a lot of times we get investors and advisors on board, and we treat them like investors. We put them on a pedestal, and we don't leverage them to the extent that we could leverage them. So what we started doing at some point is we started treating these investors and advisors as members of our team. Just like I would assign a member of my team some task, I would assign an investor a task as well, and make sure they would deliver on that task. Because these are some of the most resourceful people that you will find in the region. And you cannot hire them with money, but they're with you, they're on board. Let's make sure that we get the most out of them. So find local allies and make sure that we get the most out of them. And lastly, while entrepreneurship gets glorified a lot in the media and otherwise, it's a pretty tough journey. There are days that you just want to give up. There are weeks and months that are quite challenging. And if you don't invest time to discover your purpose, discover why you're doing it at the deepest level possible, it's going to become very difficult. It's going to become difficult to keep going in the face of adversity. So we actually spent a few months in 2015 to make sure that we discovered our purpose. Because purpose is there. If you're doing what you're doing, there is something that is driving you. And it's not money always. And for us, the purpose was we want to simplify the lives of people in the region, and we want to build an awesome organization that inspires. This region hasn't done a great job in building corporate institutions that last a long time. And we would love to build one of these. And inshallah, when we build one, and people see that it can be done, many more will come. And we will do this. We will simplify the lives, and we'll build an awesome organizations by being Careem. Careem is an Arabic word that means generous. We'll be Careem to our colleagues, we'll be Careem to our captains, and we'll be Careem to our customers. And we'll be Careem to our colleagues, meaning we will look after their professional development. Careem to our captains means we look after their overall well-being, and Careem to our customer means we deliver outstanding customer service. So it's very, very important in our mind to discover your purpose and let that both get you out of the troughs and also allow you to attract amazing people. All amazing, awesome people are driven by impact more than anything else. If you don't have a deeper thing that's driving you and that's keeping you motivated, it's going to be very difficult to get the right people on board and get them motivated as well. So the 5 lessons: solve local problems, be quick and iterate, hire awesome people, whatever it takes, get local allies on board, and discover your purpose. Now, I know I'm running late, so I'll just jump a little bit on the future. Why we're excited about Turkey. Now, Turkey is very exciting for Careem for 2 reasons. One is we believe that this is a market that we can make an impact on from a transportation service perspective. This place has more advanced infrastructure than most of our markets, but we feel there's still gaps that we can fill and make an impact. And that's what we call the ride-hailing service, where we can build the infrastructure, we can create jobs in the process. But there's another thing that really excites us about Turkey. This place has a more advanced talent infrastructure than anywhere else in the region. And we believe that we can invest to build a global R&D hub in Turkey that can support the rest of our region as well. And we believe that if the right environment is created, and if you're able to focus on both of these things, between the next few years, we should easily be able to invest $50 to $100 million in Turkey in the base case. So it's an exciting market. We're very excited to be here, not just because of the market itself, but the ability of the market and the potential of the market to serve the rest of the Careem network. So thank you very much. Sorry we took a bit longer than I had, but thank you.
Nice job. Thank you.
Thank you very much.